He parted from them, it says, and they were filled with joy. Parting doesn't usually involve joy for human beings. If you think about some of the major partings you've had in your life, they are often some of the most painful things we go through. When I meet with a family who has had a loss, I tell them that there are two tasks that they have to undertake. The first one is they have to celebrate the life of the person who has gone on because it was a great gift. But they also have to acknowledge that things will never be the same again. That's part of what parting requires of us, to celebrate, but also to acknowledge the change. Ascension is a little bit like that. It's not death. That's not what Ascension is about. We know that his death was on Good Friday. But it is about letting go. Jesus' followers had two things that they had to do on Ascension Day. They had to celebrate the life of Jesus, and they had to acknowledge that it would never be exactly that way, the way it had been again. The fact that they rejoiced shows that they have faith, because parting is usually bittersweet at best. But with faith, they trusted that what God had promised would come to be. What would it mean for us for Ascension not to hurt? What is required for Ascension, for that parting, for that being lifted up into heaven? What would it take for that not to hurt? What it takes is for us not to cling. The disciples could not cling to Jesus on Ascension Day if they wanted to be joyful. They had to be willing to let go. Mother Teresa once said that that's how we should go through life, like this, with our hands open. And she said, if you go through life like this, then when God wants to give you something, you can take it. And if God wants to take something from you, you're in a position to give it. So how interesting that the disciples had their hands like this. They didn't cling to Jesus. They didn't beg him to stay. They trusted that the parting was beautiful. I once heard it said that when a bad leader finally leaves, the people are relieved. When a good leader leaves, the people say, oh no, what are we going to do now? But when a truly great leader leaves, the people say, all right, it's on us now. Let's make him proud. And that is what Ascension is truly about. Having our hands open, letting Jesus be Jesus, and living our lives to make him proud. Isn't that the highest compliment we give those who go before us? Isn't that the highest compliment we could give our parents or our grandparents or our teachers or our coaches or our mentors? The highest compliment we could give is to want to make them proud, to want to live our lives in a way that are worthy of all that they did to lead and guide us. One of the most beautiful things I ever heard a granddaughter say at a funeral for her grandmother was, I may not be able to fill her shoes, but I am going to follow in her footsteps. That's such a lovely sentiment. That's the highest form of a compliment. So what is Ascension asking us to do tonight? Not to cling. To have that open-handed stance. Do you remember what Jesus said to Mary Magdalene when he appeared to her, one of his dearest friends? He appeared to her in the garden, and when she recognized him, she said, Rabboni! And she went to grab him. And do you remember what he said? Don't cling to me, Mary. Don't cling. So, both the first reading and the gospel tell us that after Jesus ascended, the disciples did what they asked him to do. They went back to Jerusalem, back to the place they came from, and they decided to live the rest of their lives spreading his message and making him proud. When we go forth from Mass, one of the dismissals that we hear most often is, go forth, glorifying God by your life. That's Ascension. We don't cling. We let him be who he is. And then we go forward tonight and for all the nights of our lives to go make him proud.